Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. Hi, I'm David.
I'm Jim.
And joining us today is
Nick Bongers from Great Lakes Guitar Pickups.
Yes. So we brought in a heavy hitter for this episode.
Yes.
Let's get right into it, Jim. Well, no. I got to do the housekeeping first, right? So,
yes.
Are you a regular listener? Why not? Subscribe to The Practical Guitarist using your chosen podcast app. Take the time to put in a review with service where you found our podcast, like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Get involved. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/practicalguitarist. You can also find us on Twitter as @PractGuitarist. If you're interested in supporting the show, we have launched a Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. If you'd like to donate money to the show, there's always Patreon. Our Patreon is available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at questions@practicalguitarist.com.
And we'd like to thank our newest Patreon supporter.
Yes. That would be Carlos Mancha, I think.
Yes.
I reached out to him personally today. Thank you, Carlos, for your support of the show.
Yes.
So, our first discussion topic of the evening, and part of the reason why we've invited Nick on, also because, Nick, you make a great product.
Thank you.
But we're talking about pickups tonight. Right, Jim? Do you want to
Absolutely
take us in?
Yeah. So I'm going to read the post. So Dan Kish said, changing your pickups is not necessary to achieve killer tone. Pickups are such a small piece of the tone pie, make a minute difference. I can take crap pickups, and make them sound amazing with a little effort. Take killer pickups and get the same sound. I know this will set off at least one of you, and we're looking forward to some pushback, trying to change my mind. And then he shared a video on the Facebook group from a guy named Fluffy, right?
No, it's just Fluff.
Fluff. Okay, Fluff. And Fluff said that the same thing. And so let's get right into it.
Yeah. Just to start us off here, I have glorious pickups in several of my guitars, one of which were provided by Bongers. Staring at this beautiful SG that you guys can't see, right on the wall next to me. And I'll have to say, I've been a pickup guy for a while, but it's mostly because I feel like it changes the feel of the guitar, not so much the tone, right? Guys?
Yeah, if I had 15 seconds in an elevator with that person who posted that, I would say, if you have that opinion, it's because you've never had a set of good pickups. And if you go back in time, the originals, the people that inspired rock and roll, all they had was a guitar with a cable that plugged into an amp, and they sounded awesome. So the moment you need more pedals, the moment you need more processors, the more you need all that crap, you're just muddying up the water. So that's just my opinion. More good pickups for us if that's the way that he wants to go.
Well, and so I've seen this attitude come across, and just like you showed this video from Fluff, and I've seen other people make these kind of comments before. Look, I understand completely where he's coming from. If you're doing the modern guitar thing, right? Like, let's say you're playing Gojira or something like that. You got a 7-string guitar, and you've got, every rack effects processor in the world in the studio that you're using to make these tones, and your 5153 with, your $1,000 cabinet and all that stuff. Like, you've added so many other pieces to the puzzle and the element that we're not talking about guitar straight into the amp anymore. And if you're going, the more simple the rig is, the more each of the tiny infinitesimal components matter. Case in point, I'm going to hold up something that makes a big difference if you're going guitar direct in, right? And I'm holding a pick in my hand for those of you that are following the podcast audio. I have done, and I think I have an audio clip somewhere on my computer where I actually took 15 picks and I dropped them all on the table and I recorded what the sounds are like, and then I played them with the guitar, and you could hear the differences in each one. And the only way you're going to hear that is if you're plugging direct in, if you're going straight in. And so what I did, instead of running through an amp, I put my guitar cable directly into my my interface, and you could hear it. It was obvious. Now, your amp, compression, saturation, all of those things affect it. And I think the closer you get back to that master volume goodness is, where you have no master volume. You just got one volume knob, and that gives you your gain and everything. The closer you get to that, the more it's going to matter.
Yeah, it's like if you're worried about skin health, but you're always wearing a mask over your face.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter how nice your face look if you're always wearing a mask. So you could have nice pickups or bad pickups, but if you're always gonna lump a bunch of junk on top of it, it's gonna take away that effect. So I guess in some ways that post was on point if that's what he sounds like.
Well, so
right.
Dan is actually a friend of mine. We get together and we jam every once in a while. And I get what he's saying. Like, I played with him. I know how he plays. And he's absolutely right when it comes to him. And I completely agree with him, and I understand where he's coming from. But that same realization doesn't apply to everyone, in the sense that there are guys out there that are trying to do it old school. Like, you do a Kiss tribute act, and I'm sure you're trying to get close to those sounds, and you're not going to do that by saying, okay, I'm gonna get out my Line 6 Helix, and stick that on the floor and hope for the best. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, and pickups are different as guitars. There's millions and millions and millions out there, and what really matters is what you hear, what you want to hear. So if somebody hears something different than you, then that's one thing. But if the Seymour Duncan Pearly Gates pickup was the best pickup in the world, maybe that would be the only pickup that existed. But we all know that pickups have different personalities, and guitars have different personalities.
Yeah, it's different shades. And
absolutely.
Part of what
I just want to say, this. So a while back, I put up a thing where I made a video of 4 Les Paul style guitars. One was an older Les Paul custom. Another was my Gold Top tribute. Another was an Epiphone, high-end Epiphone custom. And the last one was my Paul Reed Smith single cut. And I can tell you right now, all 4 of them, clean through a straight-in guitar cable into the front end of my Lone Star, Mesa Boogie Lone Star. You could tell the difference in every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And I am not Mr. I can hide the way my tone sounds. And you could hear it whether you were in the room or even if you were listening through a phone that was recording it. It's just the way it is. I cannot say enough that says that, yes, you can sit there and you can pick and choose, but if you're going to saturate your tone, and if you're going to saturate everything you do, and I'm not putting that down. There's a style of music that there are styles of music that
requires it. Yeah.
Right. Then, yeah, I get it. I get when somebody says, yeah, I do this down-tuned heavy metal, sludge sound, and Epiphone sounds great to me. Yeah, because you don't need the articulation. I can take the best Epiphone, and I can take the least expensive Gibson, put them side by side. You play me those pickups, if they are stock, I tell you the difference. I'll tell you which one's an Epiphone any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't walk out my front door with a Band-Aid on my arm unless my arm is bleeding. So when I take that analogy to guitars, I want to start pristine. I want to start virgin purity. I want a clean tone that sounds good. And after I have that, I can do anything. I don't want to start dirty. I don't want to start chunky. I don't want to start all that stuff. I want to start pure and pristine, and then I can take it any direction from there. So maybe people are starting from different spots too.
Yeah, there's nobody that are YouTube channels that do that. I mean, I've never heard of a YouTube channel where all of their demos sound like dirt and sludge. Have you, David? The Tone King.
Yes, my mind was immediately jumping to a certain person that I've decided I'm not going to talk about anymore. My therapist thinks it's a good idea that I not talk about the Tone King. I said a name out loud. Oh crap. Listen, when I got your pickups in my SD the first time, and I got it from the guitar from the guys that do my work, and I sat down. The first thing I did, I put it on a clean channel. This is the first thing I did because I'm like,
epiphany.
Yeah, no, I knew immediately. I was like, if it doesn't have it in the clean, then I'm not going to be happy like that. And again, my SG, I use it for different reasons than a lot of people. the guy that inspired me to get an SG was Robbie Krieger of the Doors. So for me, like, that's a whole other world than why most people buy an SG. You know, they're getting into do AC/DC or whatever.
And well, I'm going to say this, and I've said it before. I got mine because I am a huge Angus Young fan, and Angus Young has one of the cleanest tones you'd know in rock like that. You'd be surprised, be shocked and amazed at how clean his tone is.
Well, I shared that Darkness video the other day, the Darkness Live in the group, and it's some festival in Britain. But all right, so Justin Hawkins, a singer, he has Les Paul Customs. He plays through it's a very expensive high-end Wizard. Okay, and then
I've seen those.
His brother Dan Hawkins plays through Plexis, right? And he's got hundreds of them probably, but he's got a Marshall Plexi that he prefers, and he's using it in that video. You can hear it, and it's not dirty at all. I mean, it's almost clean. And when you hear that, that's the sound of rock and roll. They compressed that stuff and they ran it into tape hard to get those sounds to what they were. But if you heard those guys live, it was clean. It was not as dirty as people think it was.
And they probably plugged straight into the amp, and they probably rolled their volume control off 10. They probably cut it on like 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they want that dirt, they roll it up to 7. And when they're doing a solo, they roll it up to 10. And then back to clean, they roll it back down to 2 or 3.
So my thing is, and Jim knows this, I'm a fuzz face guy, right? So absolutely pickups make a massive difference with fuzz faces. And that's one of the you're not going direct to amp, but if you have pickups that are too hot or too quiet, they're not going to react right with the pedal.
Yeah.
So, Jim, you got something? You have this look on your face. You have something?
No, I just had. I was just nodding in agreement. I mean, the thing that a lot of people miss, and it's because we've talked about this before too. When you're listening to it through the wrong audio, and I say the wrong, and as in a relatively inexpensive audio like your earbuds, and you've got a lot of background noise and everything, you're thinking, wow, this distorted tone sounds just like whether it's Doobie Brothers or it's whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't, because I know, you look at the Doobie Brothers now. They're playing relatively straight into the amp. They don't use a lot of overdrive, and even some of our most favorite highly I would say distorted sounds, Stevie Ray Vaughan, really, I mean, look at what he was playing.
It wasn't that bad.
No.
A lot of it actually, in some of those cases, it's even mic distortion, and they were clipping the inputs on the board in some cases. I personally, looking at that thread and how it all panned out, I think we really need to highlight what Jason Fuzzmonger brought to the table when he mentioned that, you watched Fluff, and there are other YouTubers, in fact, you mentioned Ola Englund, who do these videos, and their sounds, even though they are using different amps, they're trying to make them kind of sound similar. And so they're using compression and EQ and things on the back end to do that. And that's, I don't want to overgeneralize, but that's kind of the impression I've gotten with several of these guys, like Scallon and Fluff. And I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to achieve that, but you can. Yeah,
but that doesn't really show the total palette.
Then you shouldn't be doing it as a review.
Yeah. So my approach is a little bit more reactive to what people like. Mm-hmm. So I want to execute what somebody wants to hear in their head based off of what they have. So let's say that somebody has a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. We all know those are super bright amps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the person that plays it is playing a hardtail Strat.
Right.
He doesn't want to put in humbuckers. He doesn't want to put in the rail pickups. He wants it to sound like a Strat. So I looked up what the original patent looks like for Fender Stratocaster pickups. They're not what you get in the actual, even American Strats.
How many wines?
The original patent had a metal base plate underneath every single pickup, just like a Telecaster bridge pickup.
Right.
And they thought that it rounded out the single coil sound and made it less shrill, but they ended up not implementing that when it went to production because it cost more money. So what I did was I made 3 single coil pickups. I soldered a base plate to all of them, and I tried them through a Hot Rod Deluxe, and guess what? It's not as bright of an amp. So if when somebody comes to me and says they want a set of pickups, I don't say, ooh, you want the Jaw Dropper or you want the Zombifier pickup. No, it's, all right, dude, what kind of guitar do you have? Does it sound good when it's acoustic? If it doesn't, if it needs more high end, needs more low end, we'll throw in an Elnico 5. If it sounds like the bells of fucking Ireland, we'll put in an Elnico 4. We'll get a flat EQ response. If you're playing it through a bright amp, we'll put more or less windings on, but we'll cater the pickups to what you want to hear. So There's no brand name, there's no marketing. If it sounds good, it doesn't need that shit.
Yeah, I the proof is in the pudding. I have a set of those pickups in my SG, and I have a set of those pickups on the way for my Les Paul. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you're talking about those pickups. This is an S500. This was a late model G&L design. The risk of taking my headphones off for a minute. This is a late model G&L design, so it came from Leo. And the cool thing about it is he went back to that. Guess what? The pickups in this guitar have a giant bar underneath them, and they're not as bright.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, right?
Yep.
So he knew, even years later, that when they made those compromises, it was probably because players were taking their guitars and putting them through different types of amplification, and they needed that brightness. But once they got back to using Fenders, maybe some guys adjusted, maybe some guys didn't. So, your mileage may vary. There was somewhere I was going with this. Your buying process is one of the easiest things to do, but and there's two things it does. Number one, it ensures I'm going to get a good quality product that fits my guitar, right? But the other thing that it does for me is it makes me, I guess there's three things. It makes me understand what I'm doing, right? So I have to take time out and think, if I got a really bright guitar, I don't want really bright pickups, or vice versa, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. But the other thing it does is it puts me in control from a psychological perspective. Like, even though I know you're building them for me, I can ask you the question, and it's not like I'm buying something off the shelf that isn't necessarily it's going to be a compromise, right? It's going to fit this one guitar model that they designed it for. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you end up having to ask those questions anyway, because when somebody says, I want a PAF set, what does that mean anymore?
Yep.
I mean, from a base definition, what it means is you wind 100 of them the exact same, and doesn't matter if you put it in the bridge or the neck because it's the exact same pickup. What you're going to find is that neck pickup is going to be louder than the bridge. Why? Because there's more string travel in the bridge area, or there's less string travel in the bridge area, and there's more string flop in the neck area. That extra motion on an equal resistance and equal inductance pickup, it's going to make that neck pickup sound louder. So if you want a balanced set PAF set, you make the PAF and the bridge a little hotter. You make the neck PAF and the neck a little bit weaker. So they end up coming, to that same level. You have to clarify all that shit.
Well, and the scary thing is most people think PAFs are hot. And they're not. I think that's a myth that's kind of starting to go away. A lot of the people I talk to now kind of know inherently that no, they're not necessarily hot. But I think that's still an attitude of a lot of players who haven't looked into it. And that was the first thing you told me. You're like, well, they're not really hot pickups. And I initially I shied away because I've always been a hot pickup guy. But then I was like, you know what? I really do want clarity. And that's more important to me than anything. So,
well, and as a fuzz person, so you've identified yourself as a fuzz fan enthusiast. You're making your tone. You're making your tone dark and saturated already with that pedal, right?
Yeah, right.
If you've got a high output hot pickup, the hotter you make a pickup, the less high end frequency you're going to have, and the darker it's going to be.
Lots of mud.
So then you get mud. So like Ace Frehley in the 70s, he plugged straight into a Marshall. He wanted it to saturate. He never played clean. So he wanted a hot pickup because he never played clean. He didn't need the clean tone, and he wanted it to sound, dark and chunky and without having to use a lot of pickups.
Right.
What's funny is that in the 70s, people were buying distortion and high gain
super
pickups,
distortion,
trying to get the tone of a PAF.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of what they should have been doing.
To back up what you're saying, Roger Mayer, of course, Jimi Hendrix Tech. I've been reading a lot of stuff from him. He's obviously still alive, and producing pedals and all that. And he said, like, we actually were taking apart Strats and measuring the output and the windings. And he's like, we were trying to tell, what the optimal Strat was. And at first, they thought the hotter ones were better. But then they started realizing, like, they changed the way that the fuzz faces reacted. And Mayer was building too many fuzz faces. Like, basically what was happening was he was rebuilding them all. And then they started realizing, well, no, if we use this lower output pickup, it works better. So he determined they got it right. He said 7.1K is perfect. He's like, that's where you want to be, between 7.1 and 7.5. He's like, you go higher than that, it's going to be muddy. He's like, you go lower than that, and you're not going to be able to push the fuzz face hard enough.
Yeah, and if you look at historical records, the 54 Strat pickups are different than the 59 Strat pickup.
Every year is damn near different.
Yeah, the early 60s to the mid 60s is different, and then the 70s is different still. And I've got recipes for all that. The magnet's different. The diameter of the pole pieces is different. The wire is different. If they were potted or not, all this stuff. So all those are factors in it. And if I like the idea of 7.1K for a bridge pickup, but then I'd go weaker in the middle and I'd go weaker in the neck.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what he meant, but he was saying, like, we were measuring the bridge pickups. Because Jimmy tended to use the bridge pickup a lot more than people realized. And I know, because I remember reading an issue of Guitar Player from somewhere in the 80s where Stevie Ray Vaughan was being interviewed. And they were asking him, like, you favor the neck pickup? And he's like, well, yeah, he's like, that's what I found, gets me closest to those kind of Hendrix tones when I'm playing some of these songs. And I think it was more just a reaction to the fact that his pickups were underwound, and that's another misconception, because I think they actually measured him for that for the Fender,
the Texas Specials.
Yeah, so the Texas Specials. So when they did that guitar, they got the deal with him while he was alive, right? The guitar gets produced post his life, and under the watchful eye of Jimmy Vaughan. And Jimmy actually, the reason why the Jimmy Vaughan signature guitar exists is because he was fighting Fender. He wanted that guitar to be an inexpensive instrument. And they were like, look, we can't do that. This is, Stevie Ray Vaughan's too important for this. So they got their custom shop instrument, but they struck a deal with him so it would happen so that he could have his lower level instrument that could be more mass acceptable, right? But the little known thing was, so Jimmy had apparently not played the guitar. It went into a vault. And then they brought it out to do the number one, custom shop thing. And when there's a video online, you can watch it. It came in the DVD in the box for that guitar when you bought it. And the DVD is on YouTube, and they take the guitar apart and they're measuring like every little piece with micrometers and everything else. And in this video, I think they talk about the fact that the pickups are actually underwound. They're like 5 point something K. They're like severely underwound. And he also had a dummy coil. I don't think they revealed that in there, but I know people who have worked with the custom shop and have heard that story that there was a dummy coil underneath the pick guard where the controls were at. So I don't know if that plays into that or.
The Fender Texas Specials were the second last set of pickups I ever bought. So I built a Partsocaster.
Okay.
And I actually have it against the wall, but I put Texas Specials in it. And then I found a custom winder in Nashville to wind me a set of pickups that were all 6K. But I ended up measuring the Texas Specials. The bridge was in the 7 point something area. The middle was in the 6 point something area, but the neck pickup was 4.9K.
Really? That underwound?
Wow.
That's kind of interesting. Because I was always under the assumption that the Texas Specials were supposed to be like way overwound.
The bridge is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, I had an SRV Strat for a while, and my and I don't know whether it was the magnets or what, but my impression of that guitar was it was dark. It was muddy as hell.
Yep.
So
I hated it.
You had
I tried
one
one at Guitar Center.
Oh.
No, I tried it at Guitar Center a few weeks ago, and I couldn't fall in love with it. Matter of fact, I was like, nah.
I love the neck shape.
I can't believe people are paying this money for it.
I loved the neck shape. I paid $900 for mine.
Yeah.
I got mine used. I paid $900 for it.
That's one of those ones that if I could get it cheaper, I could get the body cheaper, get that neck. Then I would throw that David Gilmour EMG set in.
Warmoth does that. Warmoth does that neck contour.
I see Nick.
Yeah.
The David Gilmour EMG set.
Yeah.
Well, and back in like '96 when Metallica like cut their hair and everything, I bought a set of EMGs for my '79 Gibson Explorer, and I had a EMG 85 in the bridge and an EMG 81 in the neck, so I could sound like Metallica.
The regular set, right?
And when I learned how to wind pickups, those were the first pickups I took out of any one of my guitars to put my own pickups in, and that's when I knew that I had done something good enough, because I collect a lot of vintage guitars. I've got a really nice stable in the other room.
I saw your picture online the other day.
Yeah, so if it's good enough to put in my vintage collection, it's good enough for other people too, and that's kind of how it all started. When I was like, "Wow, this is good enough for," you would never know that the tone wasn't a vintage pickup. And to get rid of the EMGs, I was happy. I mean, they were a pedal friendly pickup. Don't get me wrong, and I love Zakk Wylde and Metallica and all that stuff. But when it comes back to a passive pickup that hits it where it needs to hit it, like I wouldn't trade that for an EMG any day.
So, go ahead.
Yeah,
Jim.
go ahead.
You can go first.
Well, I was going to say why the Gilmour EMGs are a completely different animal in that the whole purpose of those was to knock down noise, stage noise.
Sure.
Obviously, he used regular Fender pickups in the studio, I'm sure, but when he was on stage, they're just too much hum, and especially with the pedal boards he's using and everything else, he had to have the EMGs.
Yeah, when you have 60 pedals on your board and two refrigerator racks filled with both amp heads and effects.
Like as a Gibson guy, and I don't have very many Strats. I've got like a Telly and I've got a couple Strats or whatever. But as a Gibson person, I find the 60 cycle hum endearing. Like that's part of the feel and the whole mystical whatever of the Fender tone. So I feel like that's something that I would want if I'm going to play a Strat.
I'm getting used to it. I've been playing them so long. I was noiseless for a while. I was like, I'm going to use noiseless pickups. But now I'm to the point where it's like, no, you know what? Honestly, if I'm getting that much noise, I just need to turn the gain down.
Well, Fishman, I'm not sure if you guys have tried the Fishman Fluence pickups.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are, I mean, they knock that out of the park.
Yeah.
If somebody put a gun to my head and said, buy a new production pickup that I didn't make, I would probably get the Fishmans.
I'm looking at Fishmans for a Telecaster. But I mean, like, honestly, for the majority of what I do, I'm not playing a Telly. It's a Strat or SG or Les Paul. So,
yeah, when it comes to the single coil sound, I prefer using either neck middle or middle bridge. I rarely use all the way over to one or all the way over to the other.
I can't wait till you get to see this S500, Jim. You're going to be so surprised by how it actually sounds.
Yeah.
It is not like a Stratocaster pickup at all.
Yeah.
So tell us. So you have your guitar collection. You got your vintage guitars. Just go through a couple of them. Like, tell us. And at the end of that, let's talk about. You've made pickups for like local builders too, right? I mean,
yeah. I can start there. The luthiers that are local to Detroit, they don't have the time to repair broken pickups. Okay. So I've been networking with them, and I just say if it's, if you come across a broken pickup, instead of buying a new replacement one, like call me up and I can fix it. So I've replaced old Rickenbacker bass pickups. I've replaced old Gretsch, the Filtertron pickups, and then the mass production old Sears and Roebucks, the Silvertones, the Dan Electros, the K's. Those were mass-produced pickups, and they really weren't meant to be taken apart. They were riveted shut, and they've got this old Band-Aid style tape in there that just kind of goos off. And you pretty much have to find a way to fix these pickups.
Jim's laughing because he's had guitars like that. He knows exactly what you're talking about.
I had one of those. That was my first electric guitar. Was one of those old, back when they were not new, but it was relatively new. It was one of those closet things that somebody had sitting around. Yeah, I know that I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah, the Band-Aid smell of taking the tape off. And then you don't know what the resistance was, and you can't find any information online. So what I end up having to do is I weigh the pickup in grams, and then I cut all the wire off, and then I wind some on and I weigh it, and then I'll wind some more and I weigh it until at least it matches in grams, and then that's the best. That's the best guess.
We'll get that, and then use a micrometer to read the gauge of the wire, right, or something like that.
To read the resistance, but if it was a dead pickup to begin with, you don't know where it was at.
Oh, so you can't. So you can't use you can't take a strand of the wire and then determine what gauge it was.
Not really. I mean, the wire is so thin. Between 42 AUG and 43 AUG is super minute. It's like
you wouldn't do. You definitely wouldn't be able to do it with a conventional caliper.
No, it's like 27 thousandths of an inch, and then if it's heavy insulation or if it's single build insulation, that's the different thickness too. So it's just a best guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And then of course we're going to talk about your vintage guitars, which you got over there. So just give us a couple. Give us a taste.
Okay, so my first electric guitar was a '72 Les Paul Custom with the Gibson embossed humbuckers. So I'm in like 8th grade, and I got it for like $900. Everybody in my high school is buying like rims for their cars or car stereos, or they're trying to like buy beer and stuff. And I'm buying guitar stuff. I got '79 Explorer for $200 back in 1996.
Okay, I was trying to get the year here because I was like, wow, you're older than I am.
That's before vintage, or it's right at the birth of vintage anyway. You know.
Got the Explorer in '96, and then I was from '65. I got a SG Junior from '64. But yeah, and then I've got some mid '90s Gibsons as well, like the Les Paul Classic Plus with the nice top on it. I think that the mid to late '90s Gibsons were actually a mini golden age for Gibson because they had the right kind of wood and they had a good decent build.
They were doing good stuff in the '90s, man.
Like, the Murphy stuff is good, and I mean, I think that's a really underrated era for Gibson.
Yeah, my '98 Custom is good.
The guy from The Darkness, Dan Hawkins, that's all he plays is like late '90s Gibsons. His whole rack is like '98 Gibson, '99 Gibson, maybe like a 2000 here and there. Like, it's just crazy.
For me, I favor the early '70s Gibsons, like the Norlin era stuff, because when I was 13 and I had that Les Paul Custom, I could fret an F chord because the neck was so skinny on the first fret, and I've been playing it for so long that it just feels like home now. And if I can get an SG Custom that feels like that, I would sell some of my stuff to get one of those, even though that they're not reputable or they're not. I mean, that's just what it is for me. So, and I love the Gibson embossed pickups on that era from like 72-ish. Those are just killer.
Are those the mini humbuckers or are they the bigger ones?
They had everything. The P90s had it stamped, the mini humbuckers had it stamped, and the full humbuckers have it stamped. So all of them, yeah.
Yeah, my first Les Paul was a '79 Custom, and I bought it when it was a year old. It had been hanging on the rack for a year, and it had never been owned. And so
did it have a second stamped on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of those didn't sell, and they ended up having the stamped 2s on them so that they could sell them cheaper.
That they could sell them cheaper. Yep, that's how I got it.
Hey, Jim.
So my Explorer is stamped second.
Yeah.
Jim, tell them about that V you had.
Oh, I had a Gibson Flying V2. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah, my Explorer is an E2.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I had the V2, had the V pickups.
Yeah, the V pickups. Yeah.
Who was the guy that made those? Start with a T. Tommy something or Terry. So anyway,
Tim Shaw, was it?
Tim Shaw. That's it. Tim Shaw made those pickups, and I was always told they were single coils, but I recently found out they were really just small humbuckers. But underneath that V. But the thing, I love that guitar. I bought it. I bought that thing, Nick, for $500. It was brand new. It had never been owned. It had been hanging on the shelf for almost 3 years when I bought it.
The contour cuts on that are so comfy too. They had like a little bit of a tummy route on it. And,
yes.
Yeah, and it's layered walnut and some other.
Totally the Ugly Duckling though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's the Ugly Duckling, like he said, with that skinny neck thing. It was home to me because that was 19 or 20 when I bought that guitar.
Tell me you still have it.
No.
I
I wish I had.
Jim's looking for another one, so if you get a line on one, pass it his way.
Yeah, so we had Robert Jackson on the show, and he was telling us how they had it at his Guitar Center. They had one hanging on the wall for like 18 months or so. I said, man, I wish I'd have called you, and talked to you then, because I'd have bought that thing from you in a minute.
Yeah, I want to get one just so I have a matching pair. So I've got the E2 and the V2, and I've actually heard that the V2 sounded a lot like a Telecaster because of the way those pickups were wound. When you go on that bridge pickup, you can get some good country honk out of it on the clean channel.
Yep, which was obviously not what people were buying Vs for.
Yeah,
I think that's why it didn't sell. Not because it didn't sound good, but because country players weren't going to play a flying V. But then again, I was in a country band, and I played when I was playing bass, and I played a Rickenbacker, so I was the
nice.
in that role.
That's cool.
Unfortunately, I've never had enough money to buy any vintage stuff, but I do play them from time to time. I go to the
You have the money for vintage stuff.
Oh shit!
You just gotta reapply the funds. You don't have to spend a lot of money to buy vintage stuff.
If stuff I want, I would.
I mean, in all reality, look at some of the stuff. Yeah, I'll admit that not everything has got to be super high end. If you look, like we've said before, if you can find a Les Paul that's had the headstock fixed, hey man,
Yeah.
My Trini Lopez has had a neck reglue on it, and the Trini Lopez is in the shop right now getting it cleaned up because whoever did it like 30, 40 years ago did a shit job, and I like to have nice things, so I'm having it fixed.
No, I wouldn't mind paying to have something refixed or anything like that. It's just I have to find the right one. You know what I mean? Like I've never even come across one that I really felt like this is a guitar I really want to own. But I'm sheltered. Like I go to the local like Guitar Center and stuff. Like I don't go to. I mean, I go to CME occasionally.
Oh,
but CME's prices are they're crazy. So.
You know what sucks is if you're going to go to the only Guitar Centers that worth a damn, honestly, that have anything worth a damn, New York City, L.A., and San Francisco area.
Right.
I mean, honestly, that's really the only place you're going to go. Other than that, you've really got to do some digging. I mean, I've always wanted a 61 SG, a 61 SG, because that's when they were called Les Pauls, right? I mean, and so I've always wanted one that was stamped Les Paul, and I don't care if the neck was broken and they had to get it fixed. And if I have to get it refixed, I don't care. I'd rather have that than get one that was from whatever. And eventually I'm going to get myself a 1964 guitar just because that's my birth year. And it might be a shit guitar.
Yeah, I got to find something from 84 that's actually worth a damn. Like,
get a Strat with non-original parts that's been refretted a million times, and you'll get one for, it'll still be a lot of $1,000, but it'll probably be the best.
So if somebody told you, Nick, you had to buy a new production guitar, what brand would you look at?
Ernie Ball Music Man.
Okay. All right.
Without even thinking. I would say Paul Reed Smith, because I met him and he's a really nice guy, and he gave me some secrets for pickup stuff. But
that's cool.
I've never taken an Ernie Ball Music Man, not the Sterling brand, but the EBM
like
stuff.
The actual USAs, right?
Yeah, I've never taken one off the rack and played it and said to myself, I don't like this. All of them felt like they were set up right. They were in tune. They didn't have any dead spots. Mm-hmm. And it felt like every single one had a really good sweet spot. And they were all in a different place, but the chords felt good. The frets felt nice and polished, and like they were comfortable to play on your lap. They were not too heavy, and the tone was there. The tops were nice. The finish there wasn't too much finish on them. Like it just felt like they thought about everything. Mm-hmm. And if I had to throw money down on a new production guitar, it would be one of those, maybe the Dark Morse or whatever line. But I like the St. Vincent ones too. Those are super comfy.
Yeah, a lot of people like the St. Vincent one, and I've been dying to play like a USA one. I played the Sterling one. I actually liked it. One. So
yeah, the Sterling one plays great too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got one for you. If right in that same line, if a company was to ask you, hey, we want you, if it was your dream company, they said, hey, we want you to create pickups for us, what would that company be?
That's a tough one. I guess if it helped Gibson, I'd do it for Gibson. But
that's awesome.
If Fender, I mean, I guess it depends who's knocking on my door, but if it was Seymour Duncan, I do it for him. Like their custom shop recommended me to somebody. They said, "Hey, we called Seymour Duncan's custom shop, and they said to call you." I'm like, "How do they know I exist?"
Yeah, you're like how'd they get my number?
So I mean, the circle of pickup winders is really small, and all the pickup winders that I've talked to in the Midwest have just been totally cool. So even if a guy was like, and even out west, like Wolftone pickups out of Seattle, or Brandon Wound pickups out of Ohio, if any of these guys said, "Hey, I just struck a huge deal with, a big time mass production guitar company, and I can't make pickups quick enough, and I know that you've been doing it for 8 years. Will you team up with me?" It would be, it'd be like, wow, that would be really cool to me to do. So the aspect of the opportunity sounds really cool.
Yeah. So, Jim, we had some other topics, right, from the group that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. First, I want to mention, Nick. You've got a band that you.
Oh yeah.
You do a tribute band, and we have to talk about this tribute band because it fucking rocks, right? And it's a Kiss band. It's called was it Detroit Rock City? Oh, look,
he's got the mask on and everything.
I got to go get mine because that's exactly what I've got. Well, we made ours. We handmade ours, but I still wear it's plastic. It was a white plastic mask, and the other guy's father hand painted every one of them. And so,
wow. Yeah. So when I moved to Michigan, my original guitar luthier was a big Kiss fan, and we both were big Kiss fans. And I came to find out that after him seeing me in I had an Ace Frehley kind of hotter than hell era Halloween costume that I had made, that inspired him and his band to have a Kiss tribute band. And I told him kind of on the side, like, "Hey man, if you ever have like an opening, can you call me? Because I know all the songs. I've been playing them since I was 12, all this other stuff." So next thing you know, their Paul Stanley quits. And I said, "Well, I kind of would rather be the Ace, but if that's where the opening is, I can sing the songs. I'm not tone deaf. I can learn to sing them all, no problem." Right. So I came in as the Star Child character. We don't like to call ourselves like Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley because we're not those people. We're the personas. Like nobody gets their role for a Superman movie and says that I'm Clark, or a Batman movie. I'm Ed West. It's like, no, man, you're Batman. Nobody wants to be the person. You want to be the character.
Even they were the characters. So
yeah. So I mean, we're not trying to be the people. We're just trying to be the characters. So we do the tribute band, and it created this huge opportunity. Being a pickup maker and being a do-it-yourselfer, I had the opportunity to make a bunch of like stage stuff. So we're not just playing the songs; we're dressing like them. We're doing the sways. We've got they spit blood, blow fire. I buy like the Paul Stanley Signature Series guitar, but I also have a Firebird 1, which is like the Joe Bonamassa Epiphone Firebird 1.
Right.
Paul Stanley toured with one of those on the Alive 1 tour. And then I've also got a black Flying V, the 120th anniversary Flying V. I specifically like that one because it has white binding on the fretboard edges. Yep. So on a dark stage, you can see where the dots are. Yeah. On every single other Flying V I've ever played, it doesn't have that. It has the raw wood on the fretboard edges. So I have to have that one. So I rotate with 3 guitars. The Ace Frehley guy is my old guitar tech, and he figured out how to get the smoking Les Paul. And
you got to show us, now that we got you on video, you got to show us your guitar that you showed us pre-show.
Yeah, this thing is amazing.
So
this is awesome. For those of you listening, he'll explain it. But.
So anybody knows Guitar Fetish, right?
Yep, that's a Guitar Fetish body.
This is a Guitar Fetish body, single humbucker, but I routed the whole thing out. Those are LEDs.
Yeah.
Every single one of those yellow things is an LED. And it's going to go into, it's all going to plug into an Arduino chip, which is programmable from USB. And then it's going to be powered by a 12-volt quadcopter battery.
That's awesome.
So the neck on it, because since it's an Ace Frehley guitar, it has to have the pearloid Grovers. That's a detail. Kiss fans are very detail-oriented. It also has to have the block inlays. So when you put it all together, it's going to be an Ace Frehley guitar that lights up and it's going to blind you when you see it.
Yeah,
when you blink, you're going to see the LEDs in the backs of your eyelids.
If you're just an audio listener, just to give you an idea of what he just showed, the guitar is literally covered in super bright LEDs, and these are the kind of LEDs you get for like photographic stuff where you're going to light a subject. I mean, you should be able to land a plane on stage with this thing.
How many LEDs are in there? Do you know?
There are only 3 things that you can see from space that are man-made. 1 is the Great Wall of China. 2 is Yngwie's Great Wall of Marshalls. And 3rd is Nick Bonger's light up Les Paul.
You see that rectangle in the corner?
There's 6.
There's 6 of them just in that one. So multiply that by however many inches there are here, and there's a lot.
God, there's got to be 300, 200, 200 or 300 in there.
But I mean, you go on Amazon, you buy the roll of tape, and the tape has the LEDs all and all you do is stick the tape on, and you're halfway there. It beats soldering.
Yeah.
So are you going to cover that in like a see-through thing?
Yeah, I've got a plexi cover that's clear, that's cut out. I routed it out the Les Paul shape, and I've got to find out a way to screw it on.
Okay.
Yeah. So we built that. We've got confetti cannons that we ordered that are CO2 powered. So you throw a switch, and it's like a PVC pipe, and it pops, and all the confetti comes out of it. I measured up Marshall heads, and went to like the local Menards and bought lumber and made these empty Marshall heads, and I went online. I ordered the plates.
Yeah.
I ordered like, bulk pots and bulk input jacks off of like a Chinese website, and like the Marshall replacement knobs, the pilot light, and I hooked up a 9-volt battery in the back to it. So when you throw it on, the pilot light shows up. None of it's wired in the back, but from the front, you hook a little patch cable up to it. It looks like it's plugged in. Yeah. The Marshall logos I 3D printed because those are $25 a piece. So, but when you look at it, they're real full Marshall stacks, and we've got 4 full stacks as it goes across.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I saw you building that project. I was glued to your Facebook while you were building that. I couldn't believe that you were going that far with that. I was like, this is awesome. Tell them what you actually use for an amp, though.
I've got a little Hughes and Kettner. It's like a Tubemeister 18, but it's the Deluxe 20. But on the back of it, it's got the Hughes and Kettner Redbox DI, so I can go straight to PA. But so I use that sometimes. But I also have the SansAmp Plexi, the Fly Rig, so I can go straight to PA with that too, because it sounds just as good as a Marshall when it's live.
That's what I was going to say.
On the stage volume. And, you show up to a bar with 4 huge Marshall stacks, and people are looking at each other like, wow, these guys are going to blow up the place. But then we play and it sounds good.
Yeah. It's not like overkill. And I've told this story on the show before, so I'm sorry, listeners, but this is for Nick's benefit. There's a club that's like right next door to the music store where I go all the time. It's not really a club, it's like a bar. And they maybe has room for like max capacity is like 200 people. It's tiny. And I was leaving there one night to go home, and I looked next door, and there's a U-Haul truck pulled up in front of the bar, and they're unloading cabinets. Okay, and I'm not talking 1 4x12. I'm talking like 4, and then 4 more, and then come out the amps, and there's multiple like what look to be 100-watt heads, and I'm sitting there going, "What in the hell do they think they're doing?" Like, in this little club, I'm just like, never mind. I'm going home.
Yeah, we show up to a venue and we're carrying in all this stuff, and sometimes the sound guy shows up late and he goes, "You guys don't need all this for this kind of show." And I go, "Well, walk around the back and just let me know if everything's hooked up right." He walks around the back and it's all empty. He goes, "Oh my God," he goes, "I gotta take pictures. I gotta call my friends. He's gonna check these out."
This is amazing.
And like just totally freaking out. And historically, Kiss had Marshall cabinets without speakers in them. Mm-hmm. And they would tell the spotlight guys, don't shine the lights on these empty cabs because you would see the holes in them.
You just go right through it.
Right. So it's not only part of the show, but it's also historically accurate to have, fake Marshall cabs.
Yeah, they weren't the only ones. They were not the only ones.
No, and they're still not the only ones.
Yeah, now it's common.
Who was I hearing about the other day that they have an endorsement deal with somebody, and they got like they take full stacks on stage, but back behind the full stack they have like an orange tiny terror.
Yeah, I think I know that for a fact that that same exact setup that you're talking about, Cheap Trick did.
Yeah, that's who it was.
It wasn't a tiny terror, but it was a little orange, just one of their little amps, and everything else was lit up. And they had LEDs, well, not LEDs, of course. This was pre-LED times, with all these lights all over these huge stacks, and behind it was just this
little orange combo or something. Nice. Yeah, it's just hysterical.
That was it.
And there's pictures of this thing. That's what's funny about it. So it just looks like this Titanic wall of amps behind it, and there's a little tiny terror or whatever 1x12 orange combo with a single microphone in front of it.
Yeah, I know that Tommy Thayer plays Hughes and Kettner amps. Back when I lived in Wisconsin, my guitar teacher Dennis Shepard, he's a rep for Hughes and Kettner, and he actually got to deliver when they were playing in Vegas. He got to deliver a Hughes and Kettner amp to Tommy Thayer. So I know that Paul Stanley's a Marshall guy, but Tommy Thayer plays Hughes and Kettner amps pretty faithfully. So for me to play an H&K amp at a Kiss tribute show is also pretty fitting.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw them live 6 or 7 years ago the last time, and I noticed that about Tommy Squig.
I think it's very cool that you're being faithful to like the original vision. My favorite tribute band is a band called The Musical Box, and they do authentic replicas of 70s Peter Gabriel era Genesis stuff. And
that's cool.
And I mean, so if you know anything about that band, like the costumes and then and they're literally using the period correct gear. So they have bringing out Hammond organs and what's the Mellotron, and they got a modded Mellotron for that was just like the mod that they had done, and then like the pedal board is all the 70s vintage, like I think they've got like a tone bender on there, and he's got a thing called a Synthy Hi-Fi, right? Have you ever heard of this thing?
They had no bass player. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, they have bass player.
No, 70s era Genesis.
Yeah,
they didn't have a bass player, did they?
Yeah, Mark Rutherford.
Who was it?
Mark Rutherford. He's also a guitar player.
Oh,
he used to play double necks. He'd have a bass on top,
right.
so when he played.
Yeah, he played bass and then he played guitar. Right?
Well, and then when he was playing guitar, he played bass with the pedals on the floor.
With the pedals,
and they used the Moog pedals on the floor. But the funny thing is, like when you go see him live,
I played those.
There's a live album, right? And in the live album, those pedals never work right, and they're always hitting the button, and like you hear them going off or whatever. And then they're like, "Okay, we're ready for the next song." They're doing that live, and then like literally having the same problems. It's hysterical. So. Super cool show. If you ever get the chance to see him, great. And to hear people that actually like look at Kiss, and there's another Led Zeppelin act around here that does kind of the same thing. Like they will do things just to be faithful, and like to the point where it's just not even worth doing. But you're like, okay, I get it. So
yeah, I break a guitar at the end of every show, and it's just a GFS body that I drilled the neck joint out with for wooden dowels. And then I drill the neck for wooden dowels, and then I break the dowels, and then I punch them out and I put new dowels in. But everybody said like it's a real guitar, and I'm breaking it every time. I just put it back together every time.
Oh, that's cool. I was going to ask you that because he was famous for breaking that Iceman. Remember when he did the Iceman thing in the was that the 90s or early 2000s?
It was like he had a Gibson that he used to break all the time that wasn't even worth playing. I forgot what that was called, an L4 or something like that.
Yeah.
He'd break
had like a Telecaster.
It was a Marauder.
Marauder, yeah.
Was it a Marauder? Okay. Yeah, he should break that thing.
That was the breaker.
He should break that thing every fucking day.
That's what he did.
Yeah, that's what he did. He had a whole stacks of boxes. He said for breaking only.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Have you ever had the unfortune of playing a Marauder?
No, I've never played one, but I wouldn't mind owning one just to have one for the Kiss tribute.
They're cool. I mean, because of what they are. Like, it's a historical thing. But, dude, I don't know what Gibson was thinking. Like, I honestly don't know. I know what they were thinking. They were thinking, look, we're going to compete with the 70s Japanese stuff that's knocking us off by producing a guitar of similar quality. And that's what they got.
Yeah.
So,
well, it almost reminds me of like the Pawn Shop series that Fender has now. Like we're going to take a single cut Les Paul, we're going to put on a flying V neck, and we're going to put on a Telecaster bridge pickup. You know what I mean? We're going to bastardize a lot of the cool parts of stuff that we like and see where it goes.
I'm glad to hear somebody else say this. We talked about the pawn shop, but what they call the alternate universe series, and how Fender was just like, we'll mash these parts up together, and like it's a really cheap way of creating a new guitar, and maybe one takes off or whatever. The way I looked at it was like, you'll see these on sale like real soon because nobody's gonna buy them. So what happened on Sweetwater the other day? Yellow tag clearance. Several of them were on sale on Yellow tag.
Yep.
Wow.
That's throwing a pile of shit at the wall and hoping some of it sticks.
That's exactly what it was. So
the one thing that I can say, and if you go to Chicago Music Exchange, I defy you to do this experiment. Walk around to the 72 Fender Telecaster Deluxes, or the thin lines, the ones that have the wide range pickups in them, and play one. Play it plugged in, and then take a 72 reissue down.
Yeah, they're totally different.
That one.
They're totally different.
The wide range pickups are different under the hood.
Yeah.
So what they did when they reissued those pickups was they used the 72 cover. But the pole pieces are steel poles, and there's a bar magnet underneath, just like your regular old humbucker. The original 72s had magnetic poles, those screws that you could adjust the heights in.
Yeah.
Each one of those was its own pole magnet, just like a Strat, and that's where you got the percussion from. That's where you got the feel from, and the snappiness of those wide range pickups. So what I do whenever I see somebody with a 72 reissue, I say, rip those pickups out and send them to me. And I hand ream. I take out those. I take out the bar magnet. I take out the poles, and I hand ream those holes. And I put either Strat poles in there, like what I would put in a Strat pickup, or you can buy now the a screw that has a hollowed out hole in it, and then a bar magnet inside the screw. You couldn't get them unless ordering from China by the millions, but now on stateside you can start to get them now. But you can retrofit the reissue wide range pickup to actually have the magnetic poles now, and it does make a huge difference.
Well, I'm sure it does. My S500 has they're single coil pickups, and they have individual adjustable pole pieces, and they use a hex magnet. And I just tinkered around with them one day, and I'm like, you know what? This is too dangerous, because I was, I had a clean sound going to the amp, and I'm picking it, and I'm like adjusting. I'm like, oh my god, like what in the hell?
You said exactly what I needed to hear, because I've been talking to Dave for months about getting one of those 72 thin line reissues, but like you said, I couldn't find the sound I wanted from them. I love the look, and the 72 thin line is the only Strat I pick up and play that I like. But I can find one that I like. And I was like, but the pickups are shit, and what do I put in them? Do I put bare knuckles in them? Do I put fluids? What do I put in there? So that's what I'll do. I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah. Well, you can pay Jason Lawler about $300 or $400 for a set, or you can send those ones to me, and I can retrofit them for a lot less.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
Nick has, and for all of our listeners who are considering Nick's pickups, he has fair prices, and you have a quality guarantee. I like that.
Yeah, musicians are poor. I've never met a rich musician, even the ones that are national touring artists. They don't want to spend a lot of money, or they want something for free. So, unless you're a rich dude that just collects stuff, you're probably not the kind of person that wants to approach me, because you don't know how you want it to sound anyway.
Right.
But if you're a working musician, or if you're a hobbyist and you want to hear something, if you can explain it to me, I can probably build it for you. And if I send you something you don't like, I can either refund you, or I can go back to the drawing board, because I've been doing this for 8 years, and I think I've only had one customer not be happy with what I had, and it was because I was holding the wire with my fingers, and I couldn't hold the wire tight enough to get enough winds on it. He goes, it has to be 8.3K. And I couldn't get it hotter than 7.8K, because I'm trying to hold it as tight as I can. I can't get enough wire on it. And that was back when I started.
You told me that story, and I cracked up. I was like, really?
Everybody since then's been happy with what I could do, and I like that people compare it to the big name stuff, even though I don't have any aspirations of being a big name pickup maker. I have an aspiration of turning people on that I know, or people that want a quality price for a quality dollar. And I know that there's kids in high school that can't afford, Lindy Fralin pickups or, the multi-$100 stuff. So, you can save up a little bit less than that and get one for me and be just as happy.
Yeah, if not more happy. I think the pickups that you built for me for the SG are probably the best pickups I've ever played. And that's saying quite a bit. So,
all right. So you want to move on to the Jason Fuzzmonger thing?
Let's get angry.
Okay.
Let's get angry. So here's one. So this guy, I don't even remember what his YouTube thing is, but he put up that the guitar is dead and it's your fault. R.I.P. rock and the guitar solo. And Jason Fuzzmonger says it's an interesting take on why this dude thinks rock music is dead. And I'm going to say this. I saw a horrible thing going on, and I know everybody's going to have a different take on it than me. But as a person who played and was paid to play music, it pissed me off when people started downloading music for free constantly. And I said, this is going to kill a lot of it. And people were like, oh, the music industry is the only one making money on this, blah, blah, blah. I said, look, musicians, like you just said, Nick, they're poor. They don't make a lot of money. And if the record company can't make money, guess what they're not going to do? Hire musicians. And then they're going to go. We saw that was the beginning of the decline of all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Let's replace drummers with machines. Let's replace, we had seen a little bit of that with bands in the 80s, but they were doing it as a part of their sound. It was that weird, funky sound that they were getting from drum machines. But most of their music still had live drummers. We started losing drummers. We started losing other guitar players. We started seeing more and more loopers. We started seeing more and more effort.
It was a marginalization of labor.
Yes. And that, I will only take one side of that being that I agree with, and that is that if you're not going to spend money on the music you like or the entertainment you like as a general rule, you're always going to be that person trying to get it for free all the time, then you are killing it. I'll agree with that.
Sure, but the game changed, and musicians need to be able to change the game along with the industry. I mean, do you remember full service filling stations? You drive to the gas station and somebody would pump your gas. When people figured out they could pump their own gas without a tech putting gas in their car, those guys lost their job. Or
except New Jersey.
Yeah, or Portland.
Yeah,
that is a labor law in New Jersey.
When cars were invented, everybody that owned a horse had to do something with their horses. So, like for me, the cream's going to rise to the top. People still own horses. People say that jazz is dead, but there's still jazz clubs everywhere. People say that blues is dead. You've got people like Joe Bonamassa, Samantha Fish, Davy Knowles in Chicago. People still playing blues. So you can say rock is dead. I say more for me. There's always going to be people making rock. There's always going to be rock clubs, metal clubs, all that stuff. Just because it's not a Grammy award, just because, you just have to find, if you're going to support it, you just have to support it with your money. So whenever Joe Bonamassa comes to town, I make sure I buy a ticket. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but I want him to keep touring. Whenever they come out with an album, Dawes is a newer band I listen to, the Foo Fighters. Yeah. I don't care if it's crap. I'm going to buy it because I want them to keep going. So the people that download free music, it might not have clicked with them that if they don't start finding a different way to give their favorite bands their money, that they will go away. It doesn't matter what the medium is. What matters is that you find a way to support the people that you want to keep around.
Right.
So my take on this is the sky is falling attitude. And Jim, you've been around long enough to know this has happened before, where people are oh, it's dead. It's dead. And then what happens? You have a resurgence of these underground groups that surface. And all of a sudden,
I honestly think guitar is coming back. But if you look, it's got to be podcasts like ours and businesses like Nick's and the guitar sales. I think that they're looking. As a matter of fact, Yahoo just did a thing where they said that guitar sales are actually increasing, not decreasing. So the fact is that there is still money to be made. There's still. What I'm saying is, if you don't, like Nick said, if you don't support the musicians you love, then they can't afford to make music. It's still, yes, it's cheaper to make an album, but you still got to put food on the table. Everybody winds up having kids. Everybody winds up having a wife. Everybody winds up having a life. You've got to be able to do
you want
things to make a.
You want to give the musicians you love and the bands you love credit. Buy a ticket live. That's where they get the money.
That's the
or go and see local shows and people that have you guys heard of Greta Van Fleet?
Yep.
Yeah,
we just talked about them.
They live an hour north of me, Frankenmuth, Michigan, like just like tourist trap destination of a city. But here are these guys, and God help them, they're being compared to Led Zeppelin. But hopefully they grow out of that. I mean, I think it's a compliment at first, but I don't want it to curse them at the same time.
No, they're definitely beyond that. But yeah.
But it's somebody that they're local, they upcome, and like if people wouldn't have gone to their shows locally, they might not have even had a tour. And now they're setting the world on fire. I mean, everybody starts somewhere. So if there's people locally that are looking to do it, and you love music, maybe you should be getting out more too.
Well, and that's the other thing. So like bands like Greta Van Fleet and all these groups, they are the next generation. Like we need to realize they're here. They're all around us. They always are. We're just not looking. So get out there and see your local music. Go find some local venues that actually put on good shows with local bands. At the minimum.
Social media has made people lazy. I mean, now that you have to have record store day so you can go out and buy records.
Yeah,
and
don't get me started.
You know, like Facebook events, people say they're going and they don't show up. So
that's right. Facebook is probably, I'm seeing this, and a lot of musicians that I talk to are saying this. More and more people are seeing, like you said, people are saying they're going, they don't go. They say they're going to support it, they don't support it. And they're like, they get 3,000 likes and 4 people show up.
Do you know what? Yeah. Do you know what?
Facebook is total garbage.
You know what my thing
business anymore.
The way that we market the show, we use it for brand awareness. We do have a Facebook group where everybody interacts. You're a member of it. Other people are members of it. The reason we have that group, Nick, is so that we can interact with our fans and the supporters of the show. But the reality is, look, all we need to do is have you know we exist. If you listen to the product one time, and we've seen this in our numbers. If you listen to the product one time, chances are you're going to listen twice.
Yeah.
So
I avoided having a Facebook page for Great Lakes Guitar Pickups because I just wanted it to be a word of mouth thing. I didn't want to be easy to find. I wanted it to be that cool new pickup that you just heard of that you can only get if you knew somebody.
I had to go online and talk about it and ruin it for you. And
so now people are saying, what's your Facebook page? And it's like, well, it looks like I got to make one now, but it's cool to show people videos of me making stuff and, you know, what it looks like under the hood. And it kind of is a cool thing as a hobbyist for people who collect guitars to actually see the process. And now it's kind of a fun, almost an educational thing for me.
My favorite thing, and the thing I'll never forget about the pickups that are in my SG, which, by the way, I can't sell this SG even if I want to now. The coolest part of that process was that when you were like, I'm winding him tonight, and then you're like, what record should I listen to while I wind your pickups?
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, all right, here we go. Yeah, dude, that's the best. Baby. That's the best.
I like that because people listen to different stuff, and I like to listen to different stuff. And if somebody says, well, I want to set a Strat pickup, so all I'm going to play on this is Jimi Hendrix and, you know, John Mayer. So to get into the spirit of it, I'm going to throw that shit on while I'm winding the pickups. And everybody says that voodoo doesn't exist, and I will agree that voodoo doesn't exist. And every pickup is different, but for me, it's the spirit that you're capturing in the mood that I was in when I was making your pickups. If you're going to be playing it in a Jimi Hendrix mood, I want to wind it in a Jimi Hendrix mood.
That's awesome.
Totally agree.
That's
100%.
Awesome. Jim, so now that you have the Amp 1 and we had Thomas Blug on the show, Nick Bongers is on the show, what are you getting pickups in?
All right. So, well, I already said what guitar I'm going to do that in.
No, I think it's a thin line.
I honestly, if I didn't love my 57 Classics, I would replace them.
I guarantee his pickups are better than that.
And if I didn't love the S15s, the Paul Reed Smiths, I would replace them.
Those are good, yeah.
I'm Nick. I don't know if you've looked at the S15 E's or S or whatever they call them that are from overseas. All I know is that the Korean ones are probably the closest thing. You could take an Epiphone pickup and a Gibson pickup, like I said before, and I'll tell you which one is which. But those two, the American-made 8515s and the 8515 S's are so close. I mean, so close, even as clear as a bell, clean. I can barely tell the difference in the room.
It's funny because when you talk to Paul Reed Smith, he will say that he doesn't want the SC models to sound that good because he doesn't want the American line to die. So they're very careful about how good the Korean ones are. And I've played a couple Korean ones that sounded like a wet fart. So I think it's just like any other guitar. You got to play a lot of them and find a good one. It sounds like you found a good one. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is that if you got pickups that you like in your guitar, you're good to go. Don't just switch out pickups just because you want to switch pickups. A lot of people buy and sell pedals. They want to try out new stuff. I don't like to do that with pickups because sometimes you can take your pickups out, regret it, and put them back in. And it doesn't feel the same, or it's not the way you remembered it. And now you're chasing your tail. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, and as a pickup winder, if that's going to cost me whatever, I'm cool with it because if you have what works, just keep working it.
So Mira pickups, they were always made in Korea, right?
That I don't know, but I know that the Mira,
Jim knows why I'm asking.
Mira, the finishes on the Miras have had a lot of controversy. If you put low tech tape on the finish, you can peel the finish right off. I know guitar techs in Detroit that won't even touch a Mira if you go into their shop.
That's interesting.
They want to set up. They'll say, bring it somewhere else. We don't want to touch it.
That's interesting. So the reason I ask is I got into a debate with somebody who said that they changed the Mira pickups when they went to the S2 line. Paul Reed Smith denies this. I have, my local dealer denies it. They're like, no, they're the same pickup. Like, people are just smoking dope. And I've only seen one thread related to this. That's what I said. Like, okay, if it works, who cares? I don't care where it comes from. Like, as long as it sounds the same.
You like them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked, they've always been in Korea, because like that would indicate if they changed country of origin, that like from USA to Korea, that they'd actually changed the factory and therefore probably the makeup.
So one last thing before we go. So as you know, I got the Thomas Blue Amp 1. I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but I really love it. All right, so somebody said, hey, the Milkman Amps is coming out with a similar product, and it's called the Amp, and it's a 100-watt hybrid too.
Somebody's Googling.
Here's the thing. Yeah, that's fine. Here's the thing. So this is where I have a problem with it, because they're like, all right, Milkman's coming out with this at $700. That's actually $100 cheaper than the Blue or the Amp 1. All right, but here's my problem with it. It's something that's been done 100 times. Here's a 12AX7 running in the Class A preamp. All right, we've seen that in pedals. We've seen it in amps. We've seen it everywhere. So don't throw that out like it's some kind of new technology that you're doing something spectacular. Secondly, they're like, oh, it's 50 watts or 100 watts. It's actually 50 watts into 8 ohms and 100 watts into 4 ohms. But anybody that knows amplifiers knows that you get more wattage
the case
when you pull over lower ohms, because that's how wattage works. It's a mathematical equation. So I looked at it. I'm like, okay, there's only one tone. There's not even a overdrive and a regular clean circuit. It's just a circuit. You've got volume, tone, and bass. You don't even have mid control. You have reverb. It's obviously a digital reverb because they've got the reverb depth and rate. You wouldn't have that if you had a spring, or they're not even trying to be a spring, because you wouldn't have depth and rate. And then they've got a tremolo, which you have no control of.
Depth and rate is control of the trem.
Of what?
The trem.
The tremolo.
Oh, that's over the tremolo?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the reverb is not. I don't know. So all I know is that I don't know. You got depth and rate. Is it level then?
No, depth and rate is what you get on.
No. I know on a tremolo, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, your reverb is a reverb level. That's just like a Fender amp.
Just a level. Yeah. So the tremolo is either on or off. You got a depth and rate, and then you got the reverb.
It's the same controls you get on an Deluxe Reverb. Literally identical.
Yeah.
But it's a pedal.
Yep.
And it's a pedal, exactly. But it's supposed to be an amp. It's got no. You can't compare this to the Blue Amp 1. You just can't. It's not in the same.
You don't get 4 channels.
Not even trying. You don't have 4 channels.
No boost.
You don't have a boost. You don't have discrete control, because you can control individual tone above the shared tone.
Right.
You don't have that. You don't have the volume equalization on the side, and you don't have an effects loop.
I would compare it to the Sans amp fly rig, only has to go through a powered PA.
Right.
But if I had to choose between that $700 amp pedal and my Sans amp fly rig, where all I have to do is go direct into a PA without a DI or anything, I'm taking the fly rig every single time.
So, Nick, are you familiar with the Blue Guitar Amp 1?
No.
All right. So after this episode's done, you should check out our interview with Thomas Blug. So I met him at GearFest, and we talked about GearFest in private messages and whatnot. I met him there, and then we had him on the show, and we looked at his product. And both Jim and I are compelled enough that Jim actually bought one so far. I'm in the middle of year of no gear, so I have to wait until GearFest next year, and then I can buy one.
I just saw screenshots of it. It looks pretty cool. It's got different voicings for modern and clean.
It's
and
crazy.
Vintage, and that's pretty cool.
He used to work for Hughes and Kettner. Okay. He was the guy that designed the Triumph.
Okay. Yeah, very cool.
Also, and the red DI.
He's designed pretty much all the
that's very
red
very
boxes.
Nice. The red box.
Well, it's got a red box built into it. The
very cool.
Blue. It's not a red box, but he's got an output. And then
it's his technology.
He has a whole other line of products, and I just threw my catalog from him away. But he's got Amp 1, and then he's got the Blue Box, which is an impulse response speaker modeler that is 16, integrated with it. He has
16.
He has a loop switcher that goes with this thing that allows you to actually put pedals in the loop, but also to control additional functions in the amp. It's MIDI capable. I mean, this thing is whole hog. It's only $800. The actual Amp 1 is only $800, and it's 100 watts, and it sounds and feels like a real tube amp.
And you got to plug it. You got to plug it into speakers, though.
No, you can actually just use direct out, and keep it unplugged from speakers if you want. Okay. So you have the option to do both.
Yeah, it will work no load.
Yep.
When I spend $800 on something that sits on the floor, I tend to twitch a little bit. I waited 2 years to get an Analog Man King of Tone pedal, and when I got it, I was like, "This is it." I mean, it sounded really good. It sounded really throaty. Yeah, it was an awesome overdrive pedal, but when it came time to go to a gig, it wasn't like, "All right, I can't live without this King of Tone pedal." So I ended up selling it, and I became one of the many that ended up getting a profit on it. And it wasn't very good, but at the same time, I just, I sold it. If I'm going to spend $800, it better be on my shoulder or it's going to be behind me. You guys there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was hoping, because you mentioned Analog Man. Everybody still here? Jim, did we lose you?
I'm seeing a spinning thing right now. But
yes,
I'm
so
still
am I.
here.
Jim, you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All
Can
right,
you hear me?
Cool.
Okay.
We're all good. Sorry, YouTube. I was hoping that this was something it's not. There was a box on the floor. I just got a Sunface, Analog Man Sunface, right? Yeah. And my impression of that was completely the opposite of the King of Tone. I'm in line for the King of Tone. I'm expecting to get the order notice any day, in the next week or two. And I got the Sunface, and Jim will tell you, it redefined how I'm doing things.
Is it a fuzz? What is the Sunface?
The Sunface is their Fuzzface clone, right? Okay. And it is the voice of God. He honestly knows how to pick transistors unlike anybody I've ever dealt with. And I've done video demos of it and stuff now since then, and it's just, I'm still, my jaw is still dropped on every single time I plug into that thing. And yeah, I totally get it. I had an Ethos Overdrive, $650 overdrive pedal, right? I don't have it anymore. Okay, it got sold. I do have the Helix. It's a utility item. I'm not particularly invested in it one way or the other. It's a utility item. I totally get the fear of having that much money on your board in front of you. The thing with the Amp 1 that I should point out, that thing has a arch in the bottom of it, and the reason for that is it can sit on top of your amp, your combo amp, with a handle. It is
Oh,
it is
okay.
meant to be used in any configuration you could possibly want it to be in. I
And
mean,
you
he
can
thought
use
of
a
everything.
regular. Yeah, you can use a regular foot switch, or if you have a MIDI foot switch, you can use that to control it. So you don't have to buy his foot switch. His foot switch has a couple of little features on it that you might like, but if you have a MIDI controller or you have a regular 2-button foot switch, you're done.
Yeah,
you can use that.
He's
So
been complete.
I'm using my Marshall foot switch.
I love that genius, invention stuff, and if it turns people on, that's great. I mean, it sounds like he's really onto something. That's really cool.
So in Europe, a lot of people are using this thing. Here in the States, nobody. And the only famous like endorsee that I know of from the States is Jennifer Batten. And I honestly, if he'd done this in a rack unit, people would have bought it. People would be buying it right now. It's because of that whole floorboard concept. Like, well, I'm going to be stepping on this, and like, do I really want my board at my feet? I think there are people gravitating towards that. That's why the Milkman exists, right? It's only a matter of time before we're all looking at this stuff. But this is a fly rig tool. That's what this is for. This is for the guy that's got to fly in, and he's hoping to hell they got a Fender Twin behind him, but he shows up and there's a Plexi. And he's like, what am I going to do now? Or vice versa.
When you think about it, that's what he's going for. And he's going for that that person that wants to put everything into one guitar bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, that's what he admitted. He can fly to the States and do a gig, which this guy does do, and he can do it all with his regular his cabinet will fit into the bottom of his luggage, overhead luggage, man.
He's got a cab called the Nano Cab. It's like 14 by 13 by like 8 or 10, and it sounds like the best 1 by 12 cabinet you've ever heard in your life. I don't know how he did it.
It's a bold statement.
I don't know how he did it. It's ported, and he showed us his prototype in the video of how he actually designed this thing, where he was actually like taking speakers and had a prototype that had an adjustable front baffle, so he could actually play with the depth and the porting and everything, and that's how he got it to where he wanted it. I mean, the guy's a scientist. Like, when you see how he designs this crap, you're just like, holy God, like, another level.
Yeah, there's a venue in Detroit called the Band Shell, and it's where the MC5 used to play all the time.
Right.
And it's this like cement half cut out dome thing that's like all cement, but it was designed by people who are audio engineer architecture people. And when you play an acoustic in there, you can hear it from 200 yards away crystal clear. It's like the people that know science can make things acoustically or audio wise that will just blow your mind.
Now, we didn't get this in our interview with Blug, but I've seen some other video because I've been researching the amp one. And he actually was, so when he was a kid, before he ever picked up a guitar, he was building audio stuff, like, electronically as an engineer. Like, he's like 8 or 9 years old with a soldering iron. That's just beyond me. So that's why he is where he is right now. And actually, he's you won't know this till you see the thing, but he's like a really well-regarded guitar player too. Go figure. So
that helps. Remember when Kirk Hammett said he was the only guitar player making pedals?
Yeah. Yes. And now he's making the Pussy Melter.
Is he?
The KHDK or whatever that company is actually making the Pussy Melter. They did finally come out and admit it. I don't even know. All right.
I guess at the end of the day, I just don't think I'm a pedal person. I mean, I try. I mean, I've got the TS-808 hand wired. I've got the Wazacraft Blues driver. I've got the old early '90s Marshall, not the Blues Breaker, but the other, the Governor pedal.
Yeah.
And it's like the Marshall and a pedal, and they all sound really good. But when I go to a gig, all I need is my guitar and my amp. Maybe a tuner pedal.
There's a lot of people like you, and there's a lot. I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle. Like most of the guys I know, they want, pedal train trio or the pedal train pro, like completely loaded out. Like, not me. Honestly, I just need like a fuzz, and I need like a wah and a tuner pedal, and I'll be completely happy.
Analog Man's really good. Would you because I tried different fuzz pedals and I couldn't get behind them. I even got that Monterey pedal that has the
Katie Monterey.
Yeah, I've got the Keeley Monterey, and it just did not inspire me. So, do you think I should sell that and get the Analog Man?
What do you want? What are you wanting to do with it? Are you looking for like Hendrix tones? Or are you looking for like what bands are you into?
I guess I just never had a fuzz that I really liked. I'm just looking for one that I can use with Les Pauls, one I can use with Strats.
Maybe look into. He makes a pedal called the Astrotone. Maybe look into that. And for most people who are kind of in your boat, I'm immediately gravitating towards get a muff because for most people, and I'm not meaning like an actual EHX big muff, but like look at clones like Framtone and companies like that. But like for most people, a muff is going to give them. It's going to be close enough to an amp. It's not going to drive them insane, but it's going to give you those fuzzy tones. Whereas for me, I am dyed-in-the-wool fuzz face like for life, and it's because I need that interaction with the volume knob so much. Like it is a core part of what I do. When I play a fuzz face, I roll the volume knob back to get clean, and I use that as a boost to drive the amp. And
awesome.
That's what I do. And so for that, and then the other thing, my pickups and my guitars for the S500s, they have a passive treble and bass control, so they have a bass roll off. And I dial that back just so slightly so it doesn't saturate the pedal, and it just comes to life. Honestly, that's why the fuzz face that he makes is probably one of the best because it has a trimmer on the inside, so you can, let's say you don't like the sound of your pickups turned to 10 running through that, you can actually go inside and you can hit this trimmer and adjust it so it's like turning the volume knob down on your guitar permanently. So when you engage it, doesn't matter where your volume's at on your guitar, you're going to get 10.
Yeah, it always puzzles me when people say they just run their tones and their volumes on 10 because you're missing out on half of the tone of your rig.
Well,
I
always
tell people. Go ahead.
No, I think so many pedals are dependent on the idea that you're going to run full out. You know, you don't get those characteristic adjustments that you get, like if you're going straight into a good amp, or if you're, you know what I mean? Like, and so if you're doing high gain, especially, you're not going to get it to clean up in most cases. Now, my Mark V, I run a Mark V. I run on the 2C clean, or the 2C channel on the gain channel most of the time. I can get that to clean up. I never run my gain past probably 1 o'clock. I mean, it's usually dialed way back. I mean, I looked at the other day and I was running it like 10 or 10:30. I mean, it's back there, and because of that, I can get away with a lot more as far as the cleanup goes. But it's just the style of gear that's changed. Like if you're more into the vintage stuff or doing it the way they used to do, you are not gonna be able to. You're going to be able to get those tones with the volume control and the tone controls. That's why I rip all my Gibson wiring out and go right to the 50s wiring. I don't even screw around with it because the way I play and what I do, that's what I want. But yeah, so whatever you're going to say, let's do it.
Yeah, like, well, with stacking pedals, you know, like let's say you got a King of Tone and a Tube Screamer, you can't pile those on when you're on 10 full out. You have to be rolled back a little bit, otherwise it's going to squeal and not sound good. But I've probably met Joe Bonamassa about a dozen times, and everybody thinks that he's the the Secretary of Blues or whatever they call him now, but because he kind of looks like a tax man. But he's a super nice guy, and I've been seeing him since the early 2000s, and I've talked to him a lot about. I mean, he used to be able to answer emails and all this other stuff, but he's if you asked him a question, he would answer it, and he would always say to like put your tone on 5, your volumes on 5, and then adjust your amp to taste. And if you had 2 guitar players in the same band, and you were always turning up, and the other guy would turn up, and you would turn up. It's not good to turn up the master. It's good to turn up the mids.
Right.
So the mids will cut you through the mix, and use your volume to get more gain, and you'd use your tone on your guitar to get more bright. So once you figure that out, you're ahead of the game because everybody else is running their shit on 10 and they don't have anywhere to go.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I can't dispute that in the least. In fact, my personal perspective is the reason why some of these amps from the years of yore, like the 68 plexis and those things, have those like lineages associated with them, is because they have so much mids. When they started making amps that like really just scooped out everything around 750 hertz, that's when they killed it. Like that's when, you know, it was, you know, for lack of a better word, they people started getting into pedals and stuff because they wanted to put their mids back. What's the first thing you do with a deluxe or with a dual rectifier, right? Guy gets it, turns the gain up to 10, puts a tube screamer in front of it, puts his mids right back in.
Well, even your guy that says that, you know, all guitars sound the same because of all the pedals and compressors and processors he uses. You know, once you get the 7-string guitars and you're tuning down all that stuff, you're actually invading the space of the bass player. You're infringing on those frequencies, and you're missing the part of the frequencies that the guitar should be owning, and you're abandoning that part of the EQ in a band. Like, you're responsible for that upper mid area, and the bass is responsible for the low. Like, you know what I mean? You're building it from drums to bass to rhythm guitar to lead guitar to vocal. And if you're going too low with it, now you might as well just be a bass player.
I think so. I tend to agree with your line of thinking. I do. So I've seen bands like Gojira is a good example. I think they're using 7 strings. They're either using 7 strings or it's baritones. And what they do is they run an amp that the mid's just pumped up. Like they're putting all that frequency content back in, but and I don't necessarily understand the logic behind down tuning at that point. But like that's you hear these bands that are doing that, and you're going, how are they not stepping on the bass player? Well, it's because they're dialing it in a very specific way to make that happen. And I don't really hear a distinct difference in tone from doing that. It's just them, you know, I want to play lower, I guess. There's probably some logic to it. I just don't know what it is.
I will say, as a vocalist in a tribute band, I've got to sing for 2 hours. And I think Kiss tuned down when they tour, where they tuned down a full step instead of a half step. So we've been doing less longer. I can sing better. It's less strain on my voice. So for me, tuning down isn't just to sound like heavy metal. It's to actually be able to preserve my voice. Mm-hmm. So I think that Metallica started tuning down too. They used to be in 440A in the early 90s, but I think in the mid 90s they tuned down a half step. Now they might be down a full step.
Yeah, and I think
I'm sure.
I think that's a lot of it is that
more.
Even Van Halen was doing that. Like they were playing half step down because David Lee Roth couldn't sustain a whole set easily and standard. So yeah, I mean, I get it. All right. Well, we're hitting an hour and 30, guys. I think it's time to wrap this bad boy up. Does anybody have anything they want to add? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Well, thanks for having me. I think this was great. I mean, you guys have an awesome podcast, and I hope that more listeners come, because if they're not, they're missing out. But it's a pleasure to be here.
We really appreciate you coming on the show. You're always welcome. If you have new products coming out or anything like that you want to promote, if you got new gigs and stuff like that, you're always welcome to promote them in the group and or on the show. Just
or if
reach
you want
out
to just, or if you just want to join us as a technical expert and say, hey, you guys, you're morons. You're saying it all wrong.
If we have more pickup questions, we might invite you back on.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's painless, right? You don't have to do any of the editing. That's the only reason it's painless.
Perfect.
All right, guys. I have been David.
I have been Jim.
And I'm still Nick.
And we have been the Practical Guitarists.
And out.